You're live. Okay, so it seems we're live on YouTube. We're gonna wait for people to come in. We just started the live stream. Very excited to talk about the behind the scenes of the creative industry. As always, today we're gonna have a talk more specific to the creators out there. So if you create content for social media specifically, this is going to be very valuable. Um, so as usual, just because the live stream just started, usually wait 2, 3, maximum 5 minutes to kickstart. Give time to people that needs to grab a coffee, a drink, water, whatever. And I'm gonna get started soon. Okay, so please, like if you guys are listening to us, all good, just give us a thumbs up to say that the sound's good. If everything's good, just to make sure we don't have any technical problems also down the line. So if you can hear us, just drop in the chat. We can hear you. So this way we know that everything is good to go and we can start with the the nice part, the content. Okay. Still waiting. Oh, sounds and look very good. Very excited for this. Very cool. So then, yeah, give it 2, 3 more minutes. People come in, so nobody miss. And yeah, how is everybody today? Today in Berlin was way warmer than the last few days. I was really happy to get a little bit of sun. It's the last days of sun. Soon the gray winter is upon us. So yeah, brace yourselves. Winter is around the corner. But yeah. Yeah, since we're getting more people coming in. So to give a little bit of introduction, we have here Ibrahim from Movig. I will let him introduce himself with the presentation. I'm here just to hand over. He's gonna be doing the main content for today. So you guys don't have to keep listening just to me on these webinars as well. And today we're talking about scaling your creator business. It's basically all the administrative stuff that it's not so interesting, not so fun to do, but it has to be done if you want to grow as a creator and you want to make a business out of your passion. You inevitably will need to do with a lot of administrative tasks like sending emails, answering to emails, creating invoices, asking the clients for payment. All of this is not the fun part of the business, but is the necessary part. And Movig is trying to just streamline this process. So yeah, I think without further ado, we already waited 4 to 5 minutes. People were coming late. I'm gonna miss a bit of the content. I'll hand over to Ibrahim and let you take over from there.
Great. Thanks a lot. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. Talking about the behind the scenes, which, as Raphael mentioned, not always the sexiest or fun thing to do, but by the end of it, I think you'll see ways in which that it can really help scale the work that you're doing and focus on the fun stuff, which is the actual creation. So quick intro of me before we get into it. So I'm Ibrahim. I also go by Ibs, which I have been told, I didn't realize also looks like pounds, so I guess people can also call me Pounds. Yes, I'm co-founder of Movig, which we'll talk about a bit later. Freelancer, basically across multiple different countries, and have done a lot of work around human-centered design, product innovation, and I also do quite a bit of coaching around habits and kind of bridging the things that we're doing from personal habits to actually bringing that into the work and businesses that we do as well. And then after hours, I have trained for aerial circus. So if there's space or time, maybe I can try to demo some of that. And also, I'm also on a dance team as well. So as we're going, I'll kind of go through a lot of different content, but any kind of questions, comments you have in the chat, try to save some time as well towards the end to try to get to those too. So plan for today, we talk first around kind of business management, this kind of behind the scenes admin, what it is, why it's important, and then kind of go through the main kind of components of the ecosystem, let's say around sales, projects, and then payments, and then show a bit what this kind of looks like in practice. When we're talking about what might we be doing today that is working, but when we're thinking about scaling and really growing, what are things that we can kind of level up across those three different areas to create more. So as we started, we'll give the caveat. When we think about admin, it's not the first thing on anyone's necessarily their to-do list or passions or hobbies, which totally understand. It's everyone, we have these things that we have to be doing that kind of supports the work, the business creations, the things that we are passionate about. But the kind of what's happening, in the background to make sure to kind of enable it. So, we do kind of recognize that, but again, also very, very important. So, one thing that we have been seeing is that, especially with creators, spending upwards of 70% of their time on non-creating as they're scaling. And so as we kind of go through the process of starting to create a little bit and kind of really filling out, your passion, stuff you're interested in, getting more clients, things is great, starting to work more, but then it's kind of a mess in the background, right? Because now we're introducing, new tools, platforms, kind of different revenue streams and all these things that really creates a lot of back end kind of issues, which then ultimately hinders, the ability to spend more time on the things that we actually like doing. So the focus, or the first kind of mindset shift I want to think about, is this business management, not as much as around kind of things to check off the to-do list, but really, or a chore, but really a lever for growth, of how we can look at what's happening behind the scenes, simplify it, so we can spend more time basically creating and then actually growing faster and kind of scaling faster. So as we kind of go through this, want to kind of preface with some general kind of guiding principles that we think about for creatives, kind of managing the business, and the first is this idea of just being holistic, right? That it's the business side of things is just one part of your life, and it takes up a part of your headspace, but we also have to keep in mind, all the other things, commitments, kind of the stuff that we have going on in our lives. And then how do we think about that whole kind of umbrella as we're thinking about what's happening specifically within kind of the admin side. And then being iterative. Well, it's a continuous process. There's no, this is how I've set up my business, and then I'm kind of done, but something that we continuously kind of learn, adapt, and change, especially in the creative world where can be so messy, right? That, one day you could be making videos on TikTok and then the next year, getting really into filmmaking, production, and things. It's a very scenic path. So kind of having that mindset in the background that this is kind of that growth mentality and kind of being iterative around these things as you go. And then third, on being systematic. as well. Right? So this is, really thinking about the routines, consistency around these things, and not thinking about just, one-off successes versus how do we kind of position ourselves for long-term kind of success and sustainability for our business, and also for our own kind of mental health and wellness. And the last of kind of curiosity. So this, especially since I do a lot of work in design, we always think about this of kind of being curious, like a designer, or even, we always kind of mentioned Da Vinci, in that it's thinking of observing and thinking about, like, what are the things that are working well, not well, and not for a reason to say, okay, I have to completely change the way I'm doing things now, but looking at, like, why might be these issues, right? If I'm not closing a lot of deals, is it because the way that I'm reaching out? Is it the people that I'm reaching out to? Is it how I'm kind of pitching myself? And looking at kind of those different types of questions, and just trying to understand what might be those reasons. And then from there, we take this approach around then being systematic, and then kind of iterating on those different things that really will help us kind of scale throughout the process. So that's, we'll kind of come back to these kind of general guiding principles as we go, but that's just, to kind of have in the back of your mind around how we kind of, first thing is, kind of thinking about the way where our kind of perspective and mindset is as we're kind of going through this business setup and kind of scaling process. So as I mentioned earlier, so the business, kind of the ecosystem. So, what are we really talking about here for the next, 50 minutes or so? The first is sales, right? That got to get lands, leads, clients, kind of set ourselves up in terms of our branding, and then busy outreach, right? And then second, once we get those projects, get those deals, of doing the fun stuff, the creative work, and then also managing, the tasks and things that we have to be doing, make sure we can kind of check the box on the project and go on to the next one. And then lastly, of, they were getting paid, getting that money, which obviously, especially in the creative world, can be challenged with different brands. But that's, finances from payments from specific projects, but then also how does that kind of build into your overall kind of financial business health. And the thing, though, that we want to also keep in mind across those three before is going to really starting with you, right? And that each creative is very different, so their business is and should be also very different. And then this first kind of alignment is around kind of who you are and things that you want to see and be out of the business itself. So we kind of think about these kind of three areas for this first kind of alignment of starting the anchors, right? Of like, why am I in the business? Right? Like, what am I looking to kind of get out of this? Is this part-time passion? Is something that I want to build an agency? I want to build, want to build a full-on company, but and also the values as well, in terms of, as you're kind of going and working with different brands, you're going to be in situations where it might be hard, but for you might be better to say no in certain brands, in terms of, do you want to be associated, or do you want your creations to be associated with this type of brand that's doing, XYZ, or is the brand's values aligned with your own values, whether around, sustainability or diversity, inclusion, things like this, which, sometimes can be hard to say no, especially when starting out, but that kind of having those, those clear anchors will really help kind of guide as you go through that process. And that goes into, a second area around this kind of compass, setting direction. So as much as there are the kind of the must-haves, the things we want, also need to think about what are the things that are on the to don't list, right? Things that you want to completely avoid, in terms of also how you're kind of going about scaling and building this business. Is it something you want to be, dedicating 70 hours a week, or it's, again, it's a kind of a part-time thing, but that having that kind of initial alignment ends up helping you then define this last element of success. Like, what does success look like for you and for your creative business? Because that's going to be very different than other people, and then also comparing yourself to certain influencers or creators or people who maybe have a very big social media presence, or be making a lot of money, but may not be exactly what you're looking for. Because if this is something where I want to scale to the point where I'm working with brands that I really enjoy working with, then if you've gotten to that point, then that is success, right? So there's no reason or need to kind of look at those different other types of comparisons. And then really being kind of clear on those things will help then, set up this kind of ecosystem and then scale in the way that's meaningful for you. So this is kind of, initial, that's the kind of the initial alignment around the business as we kind of go through the ecosystem and try to scale. Yeah, why are you in this business? What do you want your day, week, kind of life to look like? And then what does success look like for you individually for your business? So let's go into the kind of those modules that I mentioned. So I'll briefly kind of talk through some of the best practices that we've seen for those three kind of areas. So the first round, sales. So I think the big two call outs here is consistency and kind of iterations, going back to the initial kind of guiding principles. The one around consistency. So this is sometimes where goals can work for or against you, of that around the motivation around trying to get new leads, trying to build your business. Setting goals in the sense of the results of, I want to have 10 deals this month, or I want to have 20 new projects is good, but I would suggest that we also look around a lot around the kind of systematic goals, around the routines. So think more about routines over results. Right. So if we're saying that I want to be reaching out to X number of brands a week, then you're setting up a system for yourself in place where, by creating those routines, then you're going to get those results as a byproduct. And then it doesn't affect your motivation as much as well, right? Because if you set these certain targets, which can be good, you can get super motivated, but then if you don't get them that week, then that month, then you don't really have a system to fall back on, and then you're relying on your motivation, and motivation is a bit fleeting, as we know. So we don't want to be relying as much around kind of willpower motivation, and more around this routines and system that we set in place to help basically set ourselves up for success. So routines, consistency around these, kind of how we're outreaching, also following up as well, which also goes a bit into these kind of this idea of these iterations, right? That the sales process, especially for creators, is not like, as we know, with big companies or even startups, in a way that your business is changing and growing all the time, and that so each time that you are approaching a new sale or new outreach, trying to get to a new brand, you should kind of reflect where you are in the current moment, as well as what the brand is looking for. So the kind of this idea of, if you were to put yourself in the brand shoes, what are the things that you think they are most looking for outside of, and then positioning and tailoring your pitch and what you're saying towards that end, to help basically boost your chances of kind of aligning on getting a deal. And then this and second around kind of mechanics. So two general approaches we see a lot around. We kind of say like this beast mode, spray and pray of high volume, versus tailoring and kind of being really specific on when we're reaching out to brands, which both can work in different settings. If you have a kind of standard template that you send to 500 brands, you only need one or two, then you can get it. You don't need a high kind of percentage conversion, and takes much less time. But on the flip side, if there are brands that you really do want to work with, or you just want to just improve your chances of converting, having that more personalization, where you are walking in the brand shoes, understanding what's their background, how long are they new into the creative world? Have they been working with creators for a long time? Then you can really position yourself as well too for a lot of these brands, especially with user-generated content, which is what we're kind of been focusing on now. A lot of them don't know what it is. And so if you kind of come in and not say, here, I can make this content for you, which a lot of people will be, versus this is user generated content. This is the value it can bring to your brand. This is the ways that it can improve how you're interacting with your audience and with your customers. It's going to change the mindset as well for the brand, because now they're thinking, okay, this is someone that actually is not just, we get a couple videos and then that's it. It's someone that we can actually work with and kind of establish a longer relationship with. Yeah, so those are, and then we'll kind of go through again a bit some kind of tactical things here, but so that's on the sales side. And then when we go to the projects, the kind of two core components we think about is this transparency and the relationships. So transparency, as I'm sure some of you have seen as well, that expectations, especially within the creative space, can be a bit hard to manage, and it does really impact the ability for the work and for how the kind of projects are completed, because the work that you're creating could be amazing, but if it's not aligned with exactly what the client was looking for, then they're not judging it by the quality of your creation. They're judging it by the match in terms of what they were looking for. So trying to close that gap as much as you can upfront around setting up, what exactly they're looking from these videos, from this photo shoot, from the video, and then talking through a bit of what your process would look like. So both of you have an understanding of, okay, I'm gonna create the script, or I'm gonna have a rough draft version, send it to you for one revision, one review, and then I'll finalize it. Versus, because then you can get in a situation where you think you're done and then they ask for 25 changes, and then now especially when we're thinking about scale, now you can't even move on to another project, because now you have basically all this other time you have to dedicate to something that wasn't scoped. You probably weren't paid. You're not being probably paid for that extra time, and it could just be avoided from that upfront transparency and expectation alignment. Which also goes to the point around relationships. Right? Around this, think about, especially as we're scaling, think about less of, let me close this deal and get paid, versus let me create a relationship and potentially get follow-on opportunities, where a lot of these things are network referral based, and that someone who needs some content today will most likely need some content in 2 months, 3 months. And having that kind of, again, this goes to aligning with the goal, setting expectations. The way that you're working with them can really impact how much the creation and the fun stuff you could be doing with that client as well later on. And then the last area of component around payments. So kind of two areas here of brand protection. Protect yourself, basically, that that there's a lot of things, just to have some kind of routine systems in place, where if there are, you can mitigate any potential risks around people just kind of disappearing, which we know happens quite a bit. But then also with a bit of client flexibility if possible. So there's different tool services around having providing different payment options, as well as just some reminders as well for them, because brands are also doing a million different things, and that if there are certain times where they would want to pay, but they might just forget, and then if you're not tracking that, then that payment is basically just going to be gone, which becomes quite a big issue. It may not be an issue now if you're working for one or two clients, but then as you have 5, 10, 20, that having to keep that also in your headspace of who's paid what when, it's just adding more things into your head that you should kind of be offloading onto some types of these systems or routines, like your ecosystem, where it's like, okay, these are payments that I have not that have been sent out but have not been received, and then I can just mark it when it's done, then I know. Versus showering in the middle of the day, and then you're like, oh shit, I haven't gotten my, I haven't been paid yet, and then trying to follow up later on. So these, again, these kind of three areas, the sales, projects, and payments, really, if we can create those those routines, that structure, with that thinking in mind around this should be rooted around me, what I'm looking for, how I want to be working, will enable you to scale in a way that is faster, but also is more aligned and meaningful for you, right, as well, because we also don't want to burn out, or have other issues kind of come up with everything else kind of going on in our lives. So that's the kind of high level, and we'll go a bit into what some of these things look like in practice. So again, across those three kind of core areas. So starting with the first, sales, we can see, there's basically, at a high level, you find, you pitch, you manage, and the kind of the working version of looking for ads, browsing platforms, Fiverr, things like this. Maybe have a template, something, copy paste, send, and then it's done. Wait, hopefully you'll get back. Maybe not. But then, as we're thinking about then kind of scaling with with those kind of thoughts of mind around being consistent and iterating, finding first of having kind of segmented target lists in your mind, and this goes back to also kind of your anchors and values of like, what are the types of brands that you actually would be wanting to work with, or types of companies you want to be working with, and then more systematically seeing, okay, these are the 5-10 that are really priority one, and then pitching, if you are looking at more of that kind of mass spray and pray type mode, at least setting up some type of elements to help you with that kind of curiosity and iterations of A/B testing, basically having two different versions, one very professional, or version of kind of your pitch, versus something that's a bit more playful, or kind of conversational, and then seeing kind of what's hitting, and also setting and kind of going with the consistency, setting certain calendar blocks of, okay, this week I don't know how many collabs or projects I may land, but I want to reach out to at least 10, 20, 30, however many, and then tracking those. That's kind of the key to success, is the consistency of those routines of the pitching. And then lastly, basically, centralizing all these things, where, if you're reaching out via Instagram, TikTok, email, it's going to be very hard to manage. So having that kind of centralized, and then basically automating follow-ups as well, right? It's basically, if you don't hear back after 3 days, after 7 days, send an email. And you don't hear back, then you can kind of close. But those types of kind of repetitive things, where especially as you're scaling, it increases, that will really help with that scale. And then the next around kind of projects. So this, say, at high level, negotiate, create the fun stuff, and then manage. Um, so we're working, this negotiations, kind of agree, go over email. Okay, this is what I'm going to make. Work on the project as they come in, and then basically close it, and then keep moving on. But then this scaling model, or the kind of the speed version of basically having a scoping document shared with, that you can basically say, okay, for this client, they're looking for XYZ, and these are the kind of the agreement terms in terms of usage rights, post production, editing, number of revisions. So then it's okay, they see it, I see it, it's agreed, it's signed, and then now we can go with basically this reference point of, this is exactly what we had talked about. So anything that comes up around wanting 10, 20 revisions down the line, won't end up happening. And then around the creating as well, especially now when you start having kind of multiple projects, working with multiple teams, basically just generating those timelines and those workflows where you'll know that if you're working on, if you're doing the same thing quite a bit, like if you're making a lot of TikTok videos, or if you're making a lot of, you're doing a lot of photo shoots or, filmmaking, you already kind of have a sense of how long certain things will be taking you, that these are things that we can basically say, okay, if I know for this client I'm going to be doing XYZ, and then the editing, basically just generating those timelines and setting kind of those workflows that you'll just have everything kind of centralized there also. Then you can maintain those relationships over time, as well, where you kind of snapshot, this is everything I need to be doing for my creative business. um, and then again, as we talked about before, of not kind of closing the project and moving on, but maintaining the relationships with clients that you've worked in the past. So, one thing we've also seen quite a bit is that if you, especially if you're doing kind of UGC or that type of content, that having end of campaign reports where you can basically also provide some materials for your clients to say, these are the things that I did, and this is kind of the impact and the reach, which also then helps for them kind of justify or see, okay, moving forward, like, I'm going to work with this person. It's going to be very smooth to start the project. I'm going to get exactly the things that are aligned with me, and then I'll know by the end of it what was the result, which then it's again kind of positions you for much more opportunities with them down the line, because it's the creative output is just one part of the business. A lot of it is, again, how the process in which you and your team and the client took to get there, and then what happened afterwards. So that's where all this kind of the business management side of things come in quite a bit. And then the last, and then also, so I guess, yeah, we put some different tools as well. So there's a million different tools that you can be using for these things. I think the one thing is also caution creators on around the scaling is that a lot of times there's idea of, okay, if I'm getting more projects, or I'm growing faster now, I need to get more tools. I need to sign up for Asana, Trello, these things. But I would always just caution to, again, start alignment around you. What are you looking for? What do you need? And then fit things into kind of your system versus trying to put yourself onto a system that's already been set up, because then it may or may not work. You won't be able to kind of iterate, adapt, kind of grow as fast or as quickly as well. And then the last area around payments. So this, similar. People just kind of copy paste from a template, may have in Excel or Word document, change a bit of it, send it, waive their payments, and then kind of move on. But then we're thinking about scaling again. These are all a lot of things that can be kind of automated, also personalized as well. So if you already have your projects and things set in place, generating invoices, customizing the design as well, to have more of that also client relationship, where it's not just another standard invoice, but they see your brand kind of personality, your business come out through it. uh, like follow-ups, automating reminders. There are some tools like Wave, where actually you can track to see if they open the email or if they open the invoice as well, which can be useful. And then the management side around, then having basically one place where you're putting in all those payments, finances, which especially for everyone's favorite time, tax season comes around. It can kind of be a nightmare. So the ability of with these kind of things set in place, that you're one, not only letting yourself scale faster now, but you're also helping your future self, because it's then when things come up where you need to access this information, it's going to be much easier for you, or for the people that you're working with, on the finances side. So there's there's a lot obviously that you probably seen when it comes to the scaling and to the managing of a business. And again, just want to like reiterate that it's less around that idea of addition and just keep adding more things. Really thinking about the learning processes, right? That even as you grow, as maybe your team grows, you start working with more and more people, that you do have more, you are adding more hands. But if the processes are not set in place, or the learnings, you're not kind of learning and iterating as you go, then you kind of find yourself in that initial stat that we shared of spending kind of that 70% of your time kind of sorting through of who paid me when, who do I need to follow up with, what kind of goals and stuff do I have to set in place. So it's really really about those processes to kind of help let you focus more on the creating. And that's really why I kind of built Movig as well, because as we've found that through this kind of journey for creators and creatives, that it's a lot of times you're a one person band that have to basically wear 17, 20 hats at one time, and the one that you really want to be wearing is as a creator. So not being put in a situation where you have to kind of be juggling across all these different tools and these different platforms, but having something from the back end side basically to have as your kind of command center, in a way, to basically to improve those processes and let you kind of grow faster. So I'll give you a bit of a preview, or kind of intro a bit in terms of what we're building as well, and then anyone who's interested or has feedback on things that I think also would be kind of helpful or useful along the way. It's this our platform is very much on it's not only built for creators, but we want to build it with creators. So it's all about understanding kind of feedback and things that would be helpful kind of through this process of going from working to scaling and really growing. So we built this basically with those three kind of core modules in mind that we talked about around the sales, projects, and payments, as one kind of basically central automated platform that you can kind of work through all this stuff in one place. And also kind of fits into other kind of products or things that you'd be using, with Beazy, with other services for the production, or kind of the creation side as well. So on the sales, we basically these kind of the core elements is around this lead identification, tracking, and so having that ability to basically see who has been ghosted, what's been closed, um, being able to kind of automate those follow-ups and reminders as well, um, and also getting kind of contact information. So one thing we've also seen quite a bit, which can be hard around personalizing, is spending the time of getting all that information about these brands. If you want to reach out to 10, 20 brands and try to personalize it, it's going to take a fair amount of time to go through each one's TikTok profile, Instagram profiles. So we basically bring in all that information, and then the other hard part about reaching out to someone is if you don't have an email, you don't know who to contact. So that also we help provide some of the marketing contacts. So also you're not, sometimes people stuck with like the info at brand.com type, which can sometimes be gone forever. And then pitch templates and basically sales insights as well, to again go back to that point around it's a iterative ongoing process. You'd want to keep having the ability to see which pitches are working well, which days I'm sending them, without having to kind of do all of that manual like research and analysis yourself. And then on the projects side. So here we basically generate, scoping, and contract. Um, you could have different things going on for each one. So just having kind of one central place for all of those. Uh, for each project. So you don't so you don't have files and things all over your computer, things saved to your phone. Dropbox, can be a bit hard to kind of navigate. So for each project, you basically have that kind of library where you can put your shoots, edits, videos, things like that in one place. And then the last around payments. So this basically generating kind of custom invoices for projects that maybe kind of one off, and then tracking the time, so you can have and track all that information in that one place. So that's a bit about what we're building, and yeah, I would love any thoughts, feedback as we're kind of working through it on things that would be kind of helpful as through that kind of scaling process. Um, and as we kind of wrap up the the talk on a slide, in a way, I'll say, of again, the first kind of core component of this guiding principle: whole life, not just what's happening within the kind of creator business part of it. Iterating, you are in a constant state of evolution. Your life is in a constant state of evolution. Your business is, the whole creative world, creator economy is. So having that kind of flexibility and adaptability as things kind of change, to go across that. And then systematic, so the putting in those, think about the routines over the results, and then kind of being curious along the way to see what might be working well, not so well, and how to kind of change as you go. And then yes, three kind of the main steps of designing around you, anchors, what's your why, your kind of those values, direction you want to go, success, and craft this kind of ecosystem around your sales, projects, relationships, projects, payments, and then scale. So not automation, but the learnings, the automations, and organization, so you can kind of spend more of that time creating, and also doing more kind of with less, as you go. And then obviously have fun, right? This is not it's you got in, they call it passion economy and things for reason, and that these are, this creative work, it provides you that ability to express the things that you love to do and you're passionate about doing. And this whole kind of concept as business management is to facilitate more of that creation, not to overburden yourself or let you create less. So as we think about, how do I manage my business in a way to create more, is really the question that we try to kind of ask yourself, and kind of follow this process along the way, so you can spend more time doing what you love. That's this is everything we had. If there's any questions, comments, or anything, as mentioned, so I'm co-founder of Movig. So we started about 6 months ago now, and we're launching actually a beta of the platform that we showed next week, specifically focused on user generated content like UGC creators. But as you saw, a lot of these things, it's very relevant for kind of anyone within the creative space. So feel free to send over your email on our website, or reach out to us anytime. And yeah, we'll hope to see from you soon.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation, and yeah, I hope you guys got a lot of value out of it. Yeah, I personally could see myself, because I'm also a creator. Some of these examples, like tracking payment, is always a pain,
Yeah.
and going after payment. And then you have, yeah, there was a client that it took me like almost 6 months to get paid back and forth.
Oh, wow.
And unfortunately, this is not something that it's too rare in the creative
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah, that's
um,
definitely true.
so unfortunately, there is still a lot of these problems that, yeah, I guess every help is welcome. So as I said, like as a creative, you don't want to be, like asking clients for payment, and this is something that you probably are not even good at. And so at some point you're like, okay, I would rather not get paid,
Kind of.
just to not have to deal with it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
uh, um, so yeah, like as we mentioned in the beginning, it's by the way, if you guys have any questions, please drop them now. We still have like 5-10 minutes here. So if you have any burning questions you want to ask Ibrahim, and drop them in the chat, and then we can go over them right now. Um, but yeah, very interesting, and I love that creator economy is growing, and it's something that it's pretty new still, I would say, and I don't think it's going anywhere. A lot of the consumption of comment, people are watching less TV and being more on socials, and brands know that, and brands are actually looking for people to create this kind of content. um, yeah, back to the more business talk, that as you were saying, the passion economy is growing, and there is still place for people to get in the hype, in the bandwagon. um, but there is also, being so new, there is something that there is not much resource and knowledge on the business side. If you go to YouTube, you have 300 videos on how to create the content, and not much
Yeah.
content on how to manage your creative
Manage it.
business,
Yeah.
which is a completely different beast. Yeah, I had to learn this myself on the same process. Just started creating, and then I was seeing like, okay, I'm underpricing myself, I'm not dealing with clients in the right way, and it's a painful learning curve.
Yeah.
um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's
this is it is
yeah. No, I'd say it's interesting too. As we kind of been building this, of the like parallels as well of being entrepreneur or founder. Like your creators, you're an entrepreneur founder, and it's like but then when it comes to the things of the non-creation, like, yeah, it's like the information is there, somewhere, but also the time that requires to find out, like, what can I is this tax deductible or not, or what's a template to track my outreach, and all of those things. It just, it adds to the plate that's already full.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and yeah, I love, like, I think both Movig and Beazy, they are trying to do the kind of a similar path, is like making easier for creatives to be creatives, and then like in your case is more specific to content creation, specifically to social media and brand deals and everything. um, yeah, in other words, it's mainly like the general, like if you're a photographer, you might not even post on social media, but you still need to do all of those
Right.
things. There is the same problems with client payment and everything, but you might just be doing with a direct to customer instead of brands. um, so the problems are the same. Like
Yeah.
we trying to solve a lot of the same problems in different niches. But yeah, like I love to see people trying to help people live out of their passions, because this is also what we stand for in Beazy. And yeah,
Yeah.
hopefully we can make this industry like a bit better together.
Yeah. That's the goal.
Okay, so if there is no burning questions, I would say we can slowly close up the stream. We're basically almost on the time cap here, and I want to thank you first, Ibrahim and Movig, for the content, the presentation. Thank you everybody that stayed with us watching, and yeah, hope you get some value out of it. And until next time, keep creating.
Yeah. Thanks. Take care.
Okay, we just